I'm Professor Andrew Chestnut, and I'm Professor of Religious Studies here at Virginia Commonwealth University. I have 3 books, and my latest book is on the subject of today's topic, which is Santa Muerte, or Saint Death in English.
Oye, te hablo desde la prisión, Wilson Manyoma, Borbona.
Santa Muerte's growth has been so astronomical that devotion to her is the fastest growing religious movement, not only in Mexico, not only in North America, but in the entire Americas. From Argentina to Canada, there is no new religious movement growing faster than Santa Muerte. She is a female folk saint that personifies death. Latin America, and Mexico in particular, are very rich in the series of saints who are not canonized Catholic saints, but they're holy figures. And so Latin America is kind of unique in the world that it has scores of these folk saints who people pray to, people petition to miracles for, but have not been accepted, and in the case of Santa Muerte, actually have been outright condemned by the Catholic Church. If you look at the iconography of Santa Muerte, we're basically looking at a female version of the European Grim Reaper. In fact, in my book, Devoted to Death, I refer to her often as the Grim Reaperess. The Grim Reaper itself was a European invention going back to the Black Plague of the 14th century, when death was first kind of personified by Europeans, because death really became so intimate, as an estimated 1/3 of Europeans went to an early grave. So Santa Muerte and the 2 other skeletal saints, the Argentine one, who's known as San La Muerte, and the Guatemalan one, who's called Rey Pascual, really are the result of what we call in religious studies syncretism, or a fusion of the European Grim Reaper with pre-Columbian indigenous beliefs in certain death deities. And so Santa Muerte stands alone as the sole female saint of death in the Americas, if not in the entire world. And so in the Mexican context, it's really interesting that she's female too, because the other great giant of the Mexican religious landscape, of course, is the Virgin of Guadalupe, the most important manifestation of the Virgin Mary in the entire world in terms of coverage and number of devotees. In fact, in Mexico, they say Mexicans are 90% Catholic, but 100% Guadalupanos. Her female identity is really interesting too, because it's not a uniform identity. She has a reputation on the one hand for being a badass. I mean, you look at her iconography and some of her images are really menacing. At the same time, she's also a surprisingly tender maternal figure. I've heard lots of women devotees talk about how Santa Muerte is like a mother to them. And so I find that gender aspect of her very intriguing, and it's something that I'd like to explore even further in the sequel to Devoted to Death that I'm currently working on.
En el mundo en que yo vivo, siempre hay 4 esquinas, pero entre esquina y esquina, siempre habrá lo mismo. Para mí no existe cielo, ni luna, ni estrellas. Para mí no alumbra.